This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hi there, I'm Archie, and this is a deck tech of my Phenax God of Deception deck for Commander decks. And here's the deck. First up, let's talk about our general. He's Phenax, the God of Deception. For 3, blue and a black, he's a legendary Encharmer creature god, and he's indestructible. And as long as my devotion of blue and black is less than 7, he is a creature. Now, we don't really care about that. We've got some pretty onerous converted mana costs amongst our spells, so that allows us to get him devoted a lot of the time. But what we actually really care about is his second ability, which is creatures you control have tap. Target player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard, where X is this creature's toughness. Now, he's a 4/7 himself, so he taps pretty well to mill people, but again, we've got other stuff we can do. So let's just put him over here. First of all, let's have a quick chat about the mana base, because, well, it's how we're going to cast our spells. 10 islands, 11 swamps, got a few more black mana symbols around, so the extra swamp helps. I like a lot of basic lands, mainly because this is a 2-colour deck, so it doesn't hurt you too much, and for Path to Exile, Ghost Quarter, etc, etc. Anything that really screws with your mana base if you're running too many non-basics. We're running a decent amount of just straight up fixing too, so Command Tower, easily the best mana fixer in this format. Juara Refuge, Sunken Ruins, Temple of Deceit, Underground Sea, Urborg, Vivid Creek, Vivid Marsh, Watergrave, all just nice 2-colour mana fixing. Coffers goes well with Urborg, obviously, and it helps that we're running the extra swamp. And then just in straight value lands. Minamo, School of Water's Edge is pretty insane in the deck. For 2, for blue and tap this, you can say untap Phenax, for example, and mill 14 cards in a turn, which is pretty insane. Bojuka Bog, again, we're milling people, and sometimes, while usually I want to be getting stuff out of people's graveyards, sometimes you just have to get rid of them. And finally, well, Relic Tower because value, and Shizo Death Storehouse. We're running actually quite a few legendary creatures, so you get some decent value out of this, and comes into play untapped. And the new legend rule means that I don't have to worry about someone else killing it, which is nice. Strip Mine, sometimes other people's Cabal Coffers need to die. Pretty simple. And finally, Thespian Stage can be another Cabal Coffers, or can be just fixing. It's great. We have a small rank package. Sol Ring is always good, and Darksteel Ingot, Coalition Relic, Chromatic Lantern. This really helps with our pretty onerous converted mana cost, which is really nice. And Burnished Hart, it's reanimatable, so you can get extra value off it. And Found Dynamo and Gilded Lotus again, just nice ramp. Now we really come to kind of the meat of the deck, which is a bit ways to get stuff out of graveyards. Start off with Phyrexian Reclamation, pretty low opportunity cost, and the ability to just get stuff back out of the graveyard is really nice. Also provides a point of devotion, which is not insignificant. Stitch Together, this is always in the second mode, in the threshold mode, because I never don't have 7 cards in my graveyard unless someone's exiled it. So yeah, just straight up value realistically. Animate Dead hits other people's graveyards, which is important. A lot of text, but basically just says get a creature out of someone's graveyard. It gets -1/-0. And yeah, just value. Nim Deathmantle is a nice way to keep things around, particularly if I've got a decent amount of mana later in the game and can afford to sink some mana into it. Archaeomancer gets my core spells back, and yeah, it's just really very useful. Diabolic Servitude is a card I always wonder about whether I should be playing or not. The fact that it exiles the creature when it dies is really awkward, because I tend to want to reanimate things multiple times, particularly if I really like it, and it is only in my graveyard. But the fact that it's repeatable reanimation is generally good enough. So yeah. Dread Return, you can get value off it twice if you're lucky. Or just you know, it's a reanimation spell. We're Veribos, actually a really important piece in the deck. The lifelink is really huge because we have a decent chunk of pay life effects, stuff like Phyrexian Reclamation, for example. And it will also get us creatures back out our yard. Again, the exile effect is awkward, but if I'm using it, it's generally for something I want to get back for an enter the battlefield effect, or to use once to really screw someone. Lazar Demir Mastermind provides great devotion for a start, for 2 blue and 2 black, but hey ho. And yeah, if you're milling someone, he's a pretty insane card to have. You get to choose the best of the bunch of what gets milled. He doesn't give you the enter the battlefield effect that another clone might do, but he still gets enough value that I think it's worth it. Body double, again, you'll notice a running theme of cards that copy things in graveyards or steal things from graveyards. Rise to the Grave, essentially the same card. Beacon of Unrest, getting an artifact is sometimes relevant, but isn't usually that relevant. And the fact that it shuffles back in is very useful, means that we have an effect that we can, if it gets to a really late game, we can keep reusing. Chainer, very powerful card. I don't have the sack outlets, unfortunately, to protect against things being exiled, but I generally try and get stuff out of other people's graveyards with his ability, which means that if it's your stuff getting exiled, I don't really care. Phyrexian Delver, another one of the pay life effects that we need to be careful about, and it puts a body on the battlefield, and it's reanimatable itself, so there's that. Havengul Lich, just really good. Paying 1 to cast any of one of the pretty decent creature cards in my deck, I'm always pretty happy about. And if it happens that someone else is playing blue or black, and I can get one of their creatures, that's just straight value. Geth, Lord of the Vault, probably the best card in the deck. I have to say, whenever I land a Geth, I feel pretty happy about life. He is almost, if he sticks around, he's almost unbeatable, because he nicks creatures from other people's yards, and he keeps filling their yards up again, so you get more creatures to nick, and it just gets a whole heap of trouble for them. So yeah, definitely if you ever play against me with this deck, kill Geth ASAP. Rexiel, kind of similar, gets lots of value off other people's spells. The Ellen Walk and Swamp Walk is cool because it's generally blue or black spells I want to steal. Although I can't say I've never cast a Cultivate off this guy. Diluvian Primordial, again similar to Rexiel, although I don't actually have to hit anybody, which is pretty nice. The Primordials themselves are just straight value, and there's a reason one of them got banned. And speaking of needs to be banned, Sepulchral Primordial, this card is very, very good. The game does tend to revolve around him once he gets cast, people cloning him or stealing him or reanimating him, but I think I've got a pretty good chance of using him to the best of his abilities, which is why I use him. And Shieldred, another rather powerful spell, at least I think so, who demands an answer. It's a kind of a bit of a theme with at least anything kind of from a 6-drop up that I'm playing, they all kind of demand an answer. Shieldred especially, because she just messes with other people's plans very well and just gets me stuff back, which is very nice. Phase return, instant speed, indestructible, and occasionally art destroy too, but very rarely. This is usually get you. Indestructible isn't quite so relevant as so many people run exile effects, but it's still useful. And finally, Artisan of Kozilek. Annihilator 2 is nice. He's 9 colourless, which is also nice. It helps with stuff like Thran Dynamo. Although he does say when you cast him, which is a bit of a downside, so it does mean that you can't clone him or reanimate him to get the ability, but yeah, still fine. So that's all the ways we have to get stuff out of the graveyard. What do we want to actually get out of the graveyard? Well, Duskmantle Guildmage, to be honest. This guy is pretty insane in the deck. The first ability, if you activate that ability twice and tap Phenax once, that's 14 damage to someone's dome, which is just insane. So later in the game, this guy, you put this guy down and you just tap your board and people die, which is pretty nice. I will never cast this guy on turn 2. I'll probably only ever cast him when I can activate his ability at least once and use Phenax at least once. Evil Twin is a way to get rid of other people's commanders, which is really good, or just copy a someone else's really good creature, kill it, and then reanimate that copy of it. It works pretty well. Sewer Nemesis. I generally name myself with this because I like to mill myself a bit as well, which means that I never have to worry about this guy dying because I've killed a player or a player's died. Fate Stitcher. The untap on tap, the tap on tap is actually pretty useful, to be honest. Sometimes having a tapper is actually what you need if suddenly someone's vault running up, and untapping, say, Phenax, for example, another 7 cards. It's actually really useful, and the Unearth is sometimes relevant. Consuming Aberration, this guy just gets huge, and then you tap him with Phenax, and he gets even huger. I've definitely milled people out with just this guy, and yeah, he's just insane. The fact that he makes other people grind as well means he gets even bigger. Oh, this guy is just lovely, 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 lovely. Vengeful Pharaoh, nice devotion, and we don't really care. I don't actually really care if he gets put back onto my library. Sometimes it's a bit onerous. It means you just keep redrawing him, and you've got kind of nothing to do. But with this deck, we can just mill him into our yard again, and he provides a nice little no mercy effect that's hard to interact with. Guilt Theater is the secret star of this deck. For a level low 4, he packs certainly packs a big punch, especially if people aren't playing either artifact creatures or more blue or black creatures. This guy hits for 20 damage regularly, if not more. Well, actually 20 life loss, which is even harder to prevent. And yeah, I'm really surprised with quite how good this guy is. Also, that art. Great Merchant of Asphodel. It's another way to gain some life back. We've got a lot of black devotion, so he easily gets value. Reanimating him is useful. All good stuff. River Kelpie, this guy's insane. Note it says when River Kelpie or another permanent enters the battlefield from a graveyard, draw a card. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be your side of the battlefield. So if someone else reanimates something, or if someone else has a persist or an undying card, then you draw a card. Yeah, you draw lots and lots of cards with this guy. Una Queen of the Fae. She doesn't really interact with the rest of the deck very well, although she does mill, I suppose, in a way. But she's just a card that can win the game on her own. If you let her be around long enough, just overrun people with a swarm of fairies. Mikhail the Unhallowed. I mostly don't have human creatures. I mean, I have a few, but they're mostly not human. And so the Undying is very nice, and he's just a really powerful spell. Arcanis the Omnipotent. I love this guy. Drawing 3 cards is just super nice, and with 1,000 Years Red, which I'll come to later, makes him a bit less of an opportunity cost. Massacre Wurm, easily the best answer to a token strategy in the entire format. If they haven't got enough pump spells out, I've certainly been wrecked by this card after casting, well, Army of the Damned, for example. But yeah, he's great. Reanimate him, clone him, whatever you want to do. He's just great. After Woe, we can generally cast this for 2 black, which is pretty sweet. And yeah, it's nice to have the ability to just mow things down. Tidal Force, we want to tap and untap stuff. I mean, even with just this guy out, on a with Phenax out, you can mill 28 cards in a single turn cycle, which is pretty sweet. And finally, Army of the Damned. I'd like not to have to flash it back, but if I do, 13 2/2 black zombies is pretty hard to deal with. Well, unless someone has Massacre Wurm, in which case I lose 26 life and lose the game pretty quickly. But hey ho. So that's kind of what we're trying to get out of yards. I have enough ways to get things out of other people's yards that it doesn't matter that I don't have quite so many big bombs, but I think I've got enough. Finally, we come to kind of the protection package. So Black Sun Zenith, it's a wrath. It shuffles back in. A bit awkward if it gets milled, but it doesn't really matter for me. Hero's Downfall. I like having some spot removal with instant speed, and the fact that this kills a Planeswalker as well is just gravy. Grisly Spectacle. The non-artifact bit can be relevant sometimes, but it isn't usually, and it mills, which is what we want. Damnation, best Black Wrath in the format, not really much else to say. Sever, it has flashback, so you can get value off it if you mill it, and it deals with token strategies if you need to, and it's just an exile effect, which I think is really important. Street more, can get reanimated, can get evoked and then reanimated if you really have to kill 2 things. It's just great. By Finale, you just get gravy off, putting creature cards in other people's graveyards and then reanimating them. And Phyrexian Ingester, another is nice and reanimatable, and it's removal and it's exile. I do really think exile is very important, so I try and put at least a decent chunk of it in. And finally, Decree of Pain. Destroy creatures, draw cards, draw reanimation spells, reanimate creatures, essentially. A couple of counter spells, Hinder and Spell Crumple both get rid of commanders, which I think is usually pretty important to have access to that ability. Sometimes there are commanders that just need to die, and those help. And Desertion, because I like the spell, and that's just some really sweet rich skin Phyrexian art. Finally, just a couple of value spells. Cyclonic Rift, it's as good as it always is. There's very few times when overloading this is not the correct play. 1000-year Elixir has very high relevance in interaction with Phenax's ability. It means we don't have to wait for a turn cycle to tap our guys, so if someone does cast a Wrath, at least we get some value out of them. And it works with stuff like Evil Twin, it works with Avatar of Woe, just very useful. Hemin's Aura, again, all about the untapping and tapping again. If you have this on Phenax, you can mill people out very quickly in the late game. Plus the Shroud is actually pretty relevant as well. Bribery, because people generally have good creatures and I want them. And Recurring Insight finally, because you need some card draw, and this is usually about 5 or 6 cards a game, so yeah. So that's the deck. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. I very much enjoy playing this deck. It's a real blast. It has a few problems. High converted mana cost curve, which means if it comes under early pressure, you can have a few issues, but generally you're fine. And yeah, it's very powerful. It certainly dominates a late game, which is what I kind of designed it to do. And yeah, so I've been Archie. You can find me at twitch.tv/ACON, and I hope you give the good folks at Commander Decks a like and subscribe, because they're doing a really good thing for the community, showcasing some pretty cool decks. And yeah, I hope you have a good day wherever you are.